have to tell you and interject that it's not the Negroes. Why? Because you could have potentially, they could be mistaken as, because they have the same dark features. Exactly. Have the dark features.
Exactly. But the Most High know his people. Come on, prophet.
But not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
All of those are Africans.
All dark races.
Brothers and sisters, if you're from Shem, you're not African. Yeah, you were sold by Africans, but you're not Africans. Okay?
As well as that's another name. And so it's very important, just like we said, the Zondervan Bible Dictionary is one of our reference books. It's very important to understand that you need to study the language, the details, and of literature when you're studying the Bible, period, so that you can get the original intent as well as content and context, as we do here. So it's very important to understand that there is no way humanly possible, according to Scripture, that you could look at Ben-Hur and see all white people.
No, that's not.
That's not a proper depiction of what the Scripture tells you.
Prophets. All right. So I wanted to bring that definition out so we can get a good understanding, because we're going to be talking about Joseph living in Egypt, sold to slavery in Egypt. Okay, all right, prophets. So let's stop it right there. Let's go into the beginning. Let's go into Joseph's origin and to his birth. Where's that? That's in Genesis and
Joseph.
Let's see here.
Of course, it's in Genesis.
Genesis chapter 30. Where we at with Joseph?
Yeah, I think we were 31.
Okay.
Where we left off last time.
All praises.
Let's see. Might be further down. I think it's 30-31. Maybe not. It's got to be those between. We're right in between there. That's where we left off the last time with who was number 10? Asher, right?
Con. So.
Oh, here we have.
Okay.
So it's 25. So it's 30. Genesis chapter 30, verse 25.
Verse 25. Okay. Brothers, get your King James Version Bibles today. Of course, we have the 12 Patriots and the Pseudeographical. We will be reading from that today. And if you have now purchased your book of Jasher, bring out your book of Jasher today as well.
20.
Okay. So the prophet, she's in the King James Version Bible. Where you at, prophet?
Well, let's do it 21 because we there was a daughter in between.
Okay.
We had Zebulon, and then there was a daughter, Dinah. And so we're in Genesis chapter 30, beginning at 21. And afterwards she bare a daughter, she being Leah, and called her name Dinah. And the Most High remembered Rachel, and the Most High hearkened to her and opened her womb.
Okay.
And she conceived and bare a son, and said, the Most High hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph. That's very important.
So that's very important. The Most High has what?
Taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Most High shall add to me another son.
So she said, the Most High shall add to me another son. All right. Joseph was her child given by the Most High through what? He removed her reproach.
After he had taken away her reproach. Because back in those days, in those times, having a child, and specifically a male child, was phenomenal, and it was considered a blessing. But not to be able to bear children was considered an approach that was on your life, because it was everything. It was a woman's purpose to bear, to multiply and be fruitful. It was called, and they honored the commandments and the covenant very closely back then. So she was weary and, thinking that she had no purpose. And so this was, I think it's phenomenal because of the fact that it is Joseph, the child that was given to Rachel, is such a significant child, and the tribes are, the blessing that comes to
it's very, all the children is important, but it's very important This is bloodline, Jacob and Rachel's child. Right? This is not through a maid, no one else like that. This is Rachel giving child. Her womb was opened up. He's taking her reproach. She's had a son. His name is Joseph.
And so what I see is, as we're going and looking at the fathers of the nation, the approach that has been taken away from us by our eyes being open with this wake up. You know, so again, we weren't able to see, we weren't able to produce, not according to the way the Most High said, spiritually speaking. We didn't know where we were walking, and now we have our eyes are open and we can see things more clear. We walk in a way where we give the Most High all praise, because the reproach has been taken away from us.
God, all praise is due to the Most High. You know what? We're going to go and touch on the story of Joseph, his life into Egypt. We're going to be using the Bible today in the book of Jasher for a little bit more historical content. But let's read the prophecy on Joseph. Right? Okay. This is after Joseph out of Egypt. This is at the end of his life. This is the prophecy on him for his children and everything. So this is Judah. We'll be in chapter 49. Genesis chapter 49.
Oh yeah, for the prophecies, yes.
Yep, the prophecy on Joseph.
Yeah, that's in the 49th chapter.
Okay. Let's read verse 22. Chapter 40. This is Genesis chapter 49, verse 22.
Out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. That was 49:22. Oh, I'm sorry. Joseph. Joseph is a fruitful bow.
Joseph is a fruitful bow. When you hear anything fruitful that has something to do with your seed, the womb, you're fruitful. He's going to have multiple children. Okay, come on.
Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well.
Even a fruitful bow by a well. Okay.
Whose branches run over the wall.
Wow, his branches run over the wall. Okay. So Joseph was going to have many, many children. Look at how the kingdom was split. The kingdom was split in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Who was the leader of the northern kingdom? Ephraim, Joseph's seed.
And his prophecy for Ephraim is doubly fruitful.
Doubly fruitful.
He has fruitful also into the prophecy that was spoken over him as well, which makes sense, him being coming out of the one who will be fruitful. So Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. But his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty Most High of Jacob. From this is the shepherd, the stone of Israel.
From this is the shepherd, right? The stone of Israel. All right. Christ is an unmovable stone. Okay. Look, let's look at Joseph going into slavery, going into Egypt, and what happened here. Okay. Now, when Joseph was in Egypt, brothers and sisters, when he was in Egypt, right, there was no such thing as Israel. There was no Israelites. Okay? But there were certain people that were surnamed Hyksos. Okay? Prophets, let me bring out the definition for Hyksos. Because we're going to go across that. That was the name that they would call our people. Hyksos.
I think that came out on one of the other sons we were reading as well.
Hyksos is Hyksos, right? The prophecy said that on Joseph, right? From this is the shepherd, right? The stone of Israel. Hyksos means shepherd kings. Okay? Shepherd kings. Our people were shepherds, all right, over the flock, always been. We always had something to do with sheep. We were shepherd kings, okay? We came in there, all right? Joseph allowed his brothers to come in with his families, and they were shepherd kings into Egypt, okay? All right? All right, so Before I get ahead of myself, go to Genesis chapter 45, prophets.
Okay. I'm just looking at Hyksos and looking this up and seeing the confusion that presents itself, which is why we encourage you to get the actual articles and literature in books, not just online, because just in the first three, well, let's say the first four instances, HYKSOS, you put that in Google and you'll get a big bold definition that they use, many are familiar with. But as you go down, and I'm just perusing, I'm looking at Elder and I like history, so I'm just looking at the history and the timeline that they're putting here. It says they formed the 15th and 16th dynasties.
They formed the 15 and the 16 what?
That's what they say on the first one. I'm giving you four for a reason. The dynasties of Egypt, and ruled a large part of the country until driven out. And it says approximately, I guess, 1532 BC. But when you go down to the next definition, it says the 13th and the 15th. I know 13th and the 18th. Well, that's severe. That's like a 5. You got the 15th on the main one, the 15th and the 16th. But then when you go down, it says the 13th and the 18th, and you think it couldn't even get any worse. You go down to the third definition of ancient history encyclopedia, and it says the 3rd century. So it's giving you how many different periods that certainly 3rd century, and then you got 13th and 18th dynasties. Well, certainly they could have been fallen within that, but the time there, the time range is so varied. What are they trying to hide? That would be my question. So a lot of times when we're looking and studying things, we need to ask questions, just like we went and did Ham, and clearly it told you something very simple, that he was over the dark races. Well, ask a question. Then why is Ben-Hur show no dark races? Right. And every one of the people that the nations that were Libyan, Canaanites, Ethiopian, Egyptians, that's all that those movies are set. They're supposed to be set in those places. Why wouldn't you even see a fair-skinned black person? You know, and so it's not about race, because we know the hues of our colors, they vary greatly, but you see nothing. But you see nothing. You see none of them. Okay. And so sometimes you just need to ask the question. Yeah, it's important to ask the question. Ponder this. That's the Middle East. You know something is wrong. There's no dark-skinned people there. You know something is wrong. Okay. They populated those lands. Okay. And they know it's in literature. It's written down. Historical facts prove it. Okay. The people of Egypt were dark-skinned. Moses had to be dark-skinned to go in there to be a pharaoh, to rule upon the pharaoh. Joseph had to go in there and be dark-skinned to be mistaken for an Egyptian. He had to be. How was he mistaken for an Egyptian? His brothers didn't even know who he was. He had on makeup, whatever, but his skin is his skin. He had to be mistaken for an Egyptian. What you bringing out right there, Prophet? You got another definition on Hyksos? Oh no, well, the Hyksos, I don't really like the definitions all the way, but I mean we can add to it. It says a people of mixed Semitic, so we were talking about that word, and certainly we know it should be Shemitic, Shemitic and Asian descendant. So they're putting them together and saying that they're people that were mixed who invaded Egypt and settled in the Nile Delta. And settled in the Nile Delta, right? Who invaded and settled in the Nile Delta. See, so my thing is that I would rather not even put that in the hearing, but I will put it in the hearing with the caveat that we should certainly study the history, and certainly we all should, because it certainly wasn't in your school books for you to study in depth. So I believe it is our responsibility to make sure that we go to the reference texts and books that we have available. Go on Amazon and buy one of those reference books. Okay. So look, what we're going to do is we're in the book of Genesis, brother. So I'm going to back this up with the book of Jasher. We're in the book of Genesis, and we're going to look at chapter 45 and chapter 46. Okay. 45 is Joseph coming to the, revealing himself to his brothers, right? After that, 46, he goes into letting Israel, which is his name Israel before Jacob, come into Egypt. So go to chapter 45, prophets. All right. Verse 1. We'll start here. Yeah. Then Joseph could not refrain himself. This is him
holding up to him who he is an Egyptian amongst his brothers. He knew who his brothers was,